Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles IMC. Hope you're doing well. All right, last week we looked at hitters who might be up for some regression in the 2022 season, should we have it. And today we'll look at pitchers who may be in line for some positive or negative regression as well. So, yeah, just basically some filler till Major League Baseball figures out whether or not they're going to have a season here. So, picked out a few of the more notable names, and we'll just see what we see. So, looking at hitters, I start with batting average on balls in play, or BABIP. It's an easy kind of a cursory look at how lucky or unlucky, quote unquote, a hitter gets. How many times do they put the ball in play? How many times does that ball find the grass? Well, taking out all the other variables, strikeouts, and things that leave the park. For pitchers, you can do kind of the same thing. I like to use xFIP, or fielding independent pitching. What this does is it removes the parts of the game that the pitcher can control, or doesn't control. Excuse me. So it takes away defense and things of that nature, and it will include in home run. It'll include strikeouts and walks, home runs, all that kind of stuff that are directly the responsibility of the pitcher. So it is kind of not apples to apples or anything like that, but it's a good starting point. And when you combine it with other indicators and other numbers, then you can get a sense of if a player, when you look at their ERA, it's a very direct representation of how many runs scored while they're on the mound. Underneath the hood, you can look at this and say, well, gosh, that wasn't all his fault. His defense is really bad, or guys are just hitting him unusually hard, or something like that. So combining it with other things, you can get a sense of who may be in for some sort of a reversion to the mean. So we'll get right into this with, we're not getting right into this because I babbled for a little bit, but we'll start off with some of the players that got a bit lucky last year. And one of the names off the list that I had, one of the more notable names, was Lucas Giolito. And it wasn't incredibly lucky or anything like that. There's usually just small differences, but something that's worth keeping an eye on is 2021 ERA was 3.52. His xFIP, or his expected fielding into pitching. So fielding independent pitching, again, it removes a lot of the things that the pitcher doesn't have control over, but it does include home runs. xFIP further normalizes for a league-wide average home run rate as well. So it can kind of take out some of those things from stadium park factors and all that kind of stuff here. So sometimes it's a skill not to give up home runs, but for the most part, if you can smooth it out as much as you can, you're better off. All right, back to this. Giolito, 3.53 ERA, xFIP of 3.75, and so. He pitched a little bit better than, so again, he was lucky. He pitched a little bit better than the under the hood numbers would suggest by about 22 basis points here. So he's got a good strikeout rate. When you look at his strikeout rate minus his walk rate, or per nine, we look at the percentage, how many times he strikes out a guy on percentage terms versus he walks a guy on percentage terms. 20% is a pretty good number. You get above that, and it's really, really good. Just as an elite level player, strikes out a lot of guys and doesn't walk too many. You go to the other side of 20, lower than that, then maybe they're not walking as many, or they're not striking out as many, but they're walking a ton of guys here. Left on base, 80% is kind of your league average here. So when 80% of the time runners reach base, you want them to stay there. If it starts to get too far below that, you're getting unlucky as a pitcher. If it gets much higher than that, then you're getting very lucky. So this was something that we looked at last year. John Means, through the first couple months of the season, had a 100% left on base rate. Anybody that got on base stayed there. It's like that doesn't keep up. So that's an extreme example. His batting average, how many it is what it is. when players come to the plate against Lucas Giolito, what's their batting average against them? And BABIP. So we have this for hitters. It works for pitchers as well. So if you have an average of 218, but someone's hitting but they're reaching base at a 269 clip, you could say maybe they're getting a tad unlucky, but we're talking about luck here. He got a little bit lucky here. So he, one of the reasons for that is he struck out fewer players per nine than he has ever since becoming a full-time starter a few years ago, and he surrendered the highest amount of hits in terms of average that he has in his career since becoming a full-time starter as well. So again, he was a bit lucky, and and you can kind of see that maybe in the spread as you'll see this going forward. The average versus the BABIP is a little bit tighter than some of the other pitchers who are unlucky. So his luck came from probably having a really good defense overall, and so some things that maybe contributed to a lower ERA probably should have been counted. So most teams, if they're not making plays or anything that can negatively affect a pitcher, he's got a good defense behind him, and that will that could have a positive effect. And it looks like it may have had that in this case here. So no, he's a very, very good pitcher. If he does regress a little bit, he kind of will wind up with his career averages, but he may have had the benefit of some defense again, as people were hitting him a little bit more, but they weren't finding their way on base commensurately. All right, Max Fried, terrific year last year, outpitched his peripherals. This year came back to earth just a little bit here. In 2021, he had a 3 ERA with an xFIP of 3.45, so differential of about 41 basis points here. So under the hood, he was about a half an ERA worse than those final numbers would indicate here. So he strikes out about 8.5 per 9, which is roughly what he does. Strikeouts to base on balls. Again, because he doesn't walk a ton of guys, but because he doesn't have this huge strikeout rate, that ratio is a little bit lower than the elite players here. Left on base 75%, which is kind of what he does. So it was down from last year. He got very fortunate last year. This year it kind of regressed to what he's done in previous years. So in 2019 he was very it was rough. In 2020 he was excellent. Again, outperforming his peripherals. This year he settled kind of in between those numbers here. So he's getting hit an average amount. For most pitchers, 300 is good for a hitter. For a pitcher, if you're a good pitcher, you're probably in the low 200s to low to mid 200s. So that average and that batting average on balls in play, again, kind of commensurate. So again, he was a bit lucky. He got hit at a decent clip. Not commensurate ball did not find the grass, and again, leaving 75% of players. Again, a little bit unlucky. He's kind of what he is at this point here, somewhere in between those last couple of years. Again, look for some regression, but still a pretty good pitcher overall. So, all right, let's go. Brandon Woodruff. All right, 2021 ERA at xFIP 2.5 with his expected fielding independent pitching 3. So a differential of about a half a run there. So striking out at a decent clip. Doesn't this year his walks really kind of fell off a cliff, I believe, and so he's got that elite ratio of strikeout rate to base on ball rate, leaving runners on base at kind of a league average clip there. So 80%, just doing a little bit better than league average. But what really where he got, I don't want to say lucky or anything like this. This could be his skill. He hasn't done it before, but he gave up more ground balls this year. But his batting average on balls in play and batting average against, this is peak Kershaw levels right now. So he probably, when you have these monster seasons, it's normal to expect some regression. So unless he's basically peak Clayton Kershaw, these numbers should start to climb up a little bit, and you could see him approach that 3 ERA number once again here. So that's really the only thing that stood out to me. He's an excellent pitcher. 3 ERA is not a bad thing at all, and maybe he doesn't even have to go up to that much here. But I would expect him to get hit perhaps just a little bit more next year than he did this year. All right, Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray, 21 ERA, 2.84 xFIP, 3.36. Again, just over half a ERA, half a run per 9. So striking out 11.5, which was a terrific season here. Strikeout to base on ball elite, as his walks really just dropped off a cliff here. Left on base 90%. Okay, so this is where he got perhaps quite lucky. And so this is what happens when you look at guys that have Cy Young awards. I mean, things just really, or MVPs really, everything just falls into place. It's just this magical season that is not repeatable unless you're like the best of the best. And this is probably not a repeatable number. So 90% of the time when a guy got on base, he stayed there, and that's a very high number to keep up for a whole season. We expect some regression out of that one here. So the 209 average and BABIP, those are fine. Those are fair. It's this number that I'm looking at that could see that could lend to some regression next year. Again, unless if he can do this again, then yeah, another Cy Young award, but it's unlikely at this point. All right, so moving on from Mr. Robbie Ray, we'll go to Julio Urias, and I really need to watch my videos before I buy cards. I'm like $40 into this guy here. I should have watched this first. So, he had a 2.96 ERA, pitching at a 3.73 xFIP level. So under the hood, he got lucky. These are the lucky guys right now. So, this is the Let's see. Oh, sample size. I was like, what was SS again? I'm trying to figure out what my codes are here. So, all right, 9.5 strikeouts per 9, and this is the largest sample size of his career. He was a reliever up until this point, so he's had higher, K9s in the past here, but this fell into a pretty decent range. But the elite guys are really up around 11, 12, sometimes higher during a career year. So more balls in play can have an effect on the xFIP here, because if they're more in play, but maybe the Dodgers are making some more outs for him, then it shows maybe just a little bit lucky here. So a really nice strikeout to walk ratio. So maybe he's not striking out the world, but he's not walking them either here. Got a little bit lucky on the left on base percentage here. Not that lucky. It's right in his career average. He's able to hold that number here. That's not a bad number at all. So the average in the BABIP, he's getting touched up just a little bit more. The guys were getting on base at a pretty decent clip, but maybe they could get on at a little bit higher clip. So if the BABIP was a touch higher, if you look at that spread between most pitchers, this is a little bit on the low end. So this is the lowest walk rate of his career, but he had a home run to fly ball ratio over the last 3 years, and while overperforming his xFIP. So he's had the skill over the last 3 years to really outperform these numbers. And so expecting this immediate regression, it's like, well, no, his skill set is to do just this. So someday maybe those numbers catch up to him, but maybe it's not anytime soon, as he's just 25 years old. But any other pitcher that has kind of these numbers, and it's not what they've done over the last few years, then you would have more confidence in that regression. Right now, I don't have a ton of confidence, because he's He's got good strikeout pitches, and he doesn't walk a ton of guys. And he's got a good skill at leaving them on base. But that's what he does here. So the numbers would say regression. He would say not so fast. And Max Scherzer, extremely lucky, or he's just really good. Maybe I'm just going to lean towards the latter on that one here. 2.5 ERA, 3.25 xFIP. So pitched at a 3.25 level here, but the numbers at the end of the season said 2.5 ERA on that one. Excellent strikeout rate. Doesn't walk a ton of guys here. These are elite level numbers here. Left on base 84%. Maybe that's a touch high from what he does. He's really in that 81% area here. So maybe got a little bit unlucky. The average in the BABIP, extremely low stuff. So no one hit him for the most part. So when they did, when he wasn't striking them out, they weren't hitting either. So you could see some regression on this one. Basically, this is what he does. He bounced back from a high home run to fly ball rate in 2020, and in walking over 3 guys to cutting that number in half last year. So again, regression for Max Scherzer just means he's one of the best in the game instead of like the best type pitcher here. So excellent numbers overall. Regression for him, not the end of the world, because he's got an elite skill set, and he can handle a lot of these things that a lot of other people can't consistently do here. So, all right, Walker Buehler is your number one differential on the negative side here. So 2.5 ERA, pitching at pitching under the hood, about a 3.5 level here. So striking out 9 per 9, strikeout to walk ratio fair at that 20% level is kind of where you want to be a really good pitcher. Career highs, left guys on base at a career high level here at around 80%. And again, this is where I think the regression comes from for the most part. He threw more ground balls and got more pop-ups, but for the most part, this is again the peak Clayton Kershaw level here. So sub 200 average at the 247 BABIP. So unless he's Clayton Kershaw, if he starts letting up people that come to face him, if they start hitting 220 with a 260 batting average or something like that, which would be just fine. That's an acceptable number. You can still be a great pitcher with that. Then that would lend his ERA to probably rise just a bit here. Now, if he is Clayton Kershaw, then those are the numbers that you look for. All right, let's look at a few players that got unlucky, and we'll start it off with Mr. Corbin Burnes. He was so unlucky last year. Barely got that Cy Young award. So, terrific player. I just wanted to point out some really awesome players as well, so you can see how the other side looks here. 2021 ERA 2.43. His xFIP was even better than that. So you pitch at 230 level here with a 13 basis point differential. 12.61 K9, normal for him. All right, that's not normal for anybody else for the most part. A couple of guys that's normal for, but for him that's normal. Most guys that's not normal. That's like a career type year here. So that strikeout to walk ratio at 30% is elite level, and that's what you expect out of a Cy Young Award winner. Got fortunate on the left on base percentage, and again that that average to the BABIP call. So I mean, this is where he got a little bit unlucky, is holding guys to under 200 average, but they were when they did hit, they reached at a 30% clip. You would expect that number to be around league, the league average would probably be around 260 or 270. So that's where he got a little bit unlucky, and he was still incredible. So with that lowered walk rate down, this is just a excellent pitcher going forward. So maybe this comes up a little bit, maybe this goes down. And again, 2.5. I mean, to project that for anybody before the season is kind of a tough thing to do. But I would still expect him to be among the elites with these peripherals. All right, Dylan Cease. Let's just take a minute. All right, listen, I'm comfortable enough in my masculinity and all that kind of stuff. That's just a handsome guy overall here. So, but mostly I like him for the pitching stuff here. But I mean, come on. All right, 2021 ERA xFIP 391, 372. So again, got a little bit unlucky. 12 K9, which is terrific. The K to ball walk ratio. Now he's walking guys at a little bit over 3% of the, a little over 3 per game. So this ratio could be higher if he's dropping that, if he's able to drop that down to like 2 walks per game or per 9 or something like that. But left on base, so he got pretty unlucky in this category here. So if he's able to leave guys on base at an 80% clip or something like that, then you could see that ERA drop down just a bit to match that xFIP. So average and BABIP again, they're hitting them and they're getting on base at perhaps a level that's a little bit higher than what you would expect for someone who's able to control that. So with him, honestly, just get those walks down just a touch here. And this is an elite level arm. I think he was already top 10 this year. And as a side note, his Topps Chrome Sapphires autographs, you can get those raw for like $20. So worth probably one of the more interesting speculative names for pitchers, at least that I have. So Sean Monea. He's here for hair purposes for the most part, and a sweet tattoo. So 2021 ERA. He's a 30-year-old. He got a no hitter, but for the most part, he kind of is what he is. 391 ERA, 3.6 xFIP with a roughly 0.3 differential. Strikes out 9 per game. He's got that nice ratio of strikes to walks, so he handles it out there. Got a little bit unfortunate on the left on base percentage. Gets hit at a decent clip here, and gets a little bit unlucky with guys actually reaching base. So you can see it drop a little bit, but you're still talking about a 3.5 ERA pitcher, kind of best case, which isn't the greatest thing in the world. But I had that picture loaded up. I'm like, this slide looks really cool. I'm not going to delete it. So, but we won't spend any more time on it either. So Garrett Cole, 2021 ERA 320, pitched at a 293 level with 30 basis point differential. Strikes out 12, elite K to walk ratio, left on base percentage a tad unlucky, and again he got hit at a 220 level. We'd like to see that maybe at a 270, 280 level for actually getting on base, but people got on base at a 300 level clip. So that's where the unlucky part comes in for the most part. But he's been able to keep a sub 200 average over the last 3 years. So came off that just a bit this year, but he was still right in the Cy Young contention up until the last moment. So you could expect a few more good things out of him, perhaps. Luis Castillo, 4 ERA, 35 basis point differential, strikes out 9 per game, walks too many guys, so that ratio is below the 20% we are looking for. Left on base percentage, this is where it gets a little bit unlucky. 30% of the people that get on base, they score, and you want to keep that down to about 20%, kind of that 80% left on base number here. So 250 average, and they're hitting them good, and they're getting on base. So again, even if he regresses, you're still talking about a high 3 pitcher, which is serviceable by all stretches, but not elite, and not something I would look for going forward. Like, this is his top end pitcher or anything like that. He's serviceable. He's good on my fantasy team, but other than that, I'm not going to put too much into him. So, Darvish, 2021 ERA 4.20, 375 xFIP with a half run differential, strikes out 10 per 9, elite walk rate here. So his he actually, he's been dropping his walk rate over the past few years here, so that's helping that ratio overall. Left on base percentage, 72%. That's the lowest of his career. All right, so again, you want to be up around that 80% level with some, there's some give and take in there, but that's a really low number, and that's probably a big reason for this. So his skill sets other than that are really fine, but because he got unlucky in this department and the guys were scoring, maybe he has a crappy defense behind him. But that's that's they weren't helping him with his ERA at all. He was pitching better than that here. So again, the 219, 274, the average versus the BABIP, that's fair. That's really good. So he probably doesn't deserve that number here. And so something was happening where guys were just coming around to score on him. So we'll see how that works out. But he pitched. A lot of people like you, Darvish. And they'll look at that number and say, my gosh, what a rough year. No, it really wasn't, man. That wasn't all on him. What he was able to control, pitched at a little bit better level here. And we'll wrap it up with Mr. Aaron Nola. 2021 ERA 4.63. 337 xFIP with a pretty significant differential. I mean, if you just what he can control, he was a 3.3 ERA pitcher, which is really, really good. I liked him a lot this year, but the numbers sure didn't reflect it. So striking out 11 per 9, he's got that 25% strikeout to walk ratio. That's a very good number here. Left on base, there it is right there. So anybody who's getting on base for the most part was scoring at a pretty healthy clip here. So 235 average, 308 BABIP, so that's a little high as well. So he was getting unlucky, and you can look at that number right there. So we'd expect that to have some regression. He'd strand a few more people next year, and I think that could really help this number get back down. I don't know if you're getting down to 337, but sub 4 would be not surprising at this point. So highest average in BABIP since 2015-16, left on base. That's the highest number, since basically his first or second year in the league. So that's what I got for you. This one was a little bit more wonky. Sorry about that. Pitchers are always a little bit more difficult, but it is how it is. They're just weird people in general. So, for anybody to figure them out, good luck. So there it is. You like this, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.